Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. Today, we are going to talk about a whole host of subjects. Felt it was a good time to do that. But the biggest thing we're going to talk about is between Angron and the Lord Avocado, who is best or not best.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Red Path. You have a unique combination of individuals today, never before seen or done. Jack, Jamie, and Dara all on the Red Path at the same time for the
It's
same
amazing.
video. Incredible. Hasn't been done in months.
It really
But
hasn't.
here we all are. The stars and schedules have aligned. So we are going to be talking about our not first impressions, but I guess like first reports back from using the World Leader Codex out in the wilds. What we think about it, who's championing Invocatus, who's championing Angron, and everything in between. But yeah, it's great meme book. You know, there's like all of 2 pages in there, loads of different variation in list builds, right, Jack? Having tons of fun with it.
Yeah, no, it is good fun. There's loads of list variations. I heard like because basically we don't pick name characters, right? Because they're all terrible. We should just run Asriel at all times,
Azrael
right?
is probably the most OP character in the
He
game.
is
Yeah.
the most broken character in the game.
And luckily, most of us have a cipher that we can use to proxy. So
As a proxy.
That's a good point. I knew I fucking missed out on that hype train a few months back.
we
I
were,
should have
we were
gotten it.
miles ahead of the meta.
100 years ahead of the meta right there. My
uh,
boy's living on the rocks since last year.
no, there's loads of list building options. Like there's different demons configurations, there's different knight configurations, there's different
Mhm.
what allies or not allies, and then decisions about allies, and then you can run legitimately run disciples. People have been doing well with disciples, and I know you two have been looking at disciples lists potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously then the main showdown is Angron versus Imbricatus, and within that there's different types of lists which you can look at. Like anyone who thinks we're locked to one sort of list isn't trying hard enough. Gonna
Yeah,
say
They're
that.
just
hundred
it's just
percent.
wrong.
There is
Yeah.
so much variation
Haven't even
in
gotten
this.
Forge World. Like
Yeah,
there's so much Forge World stuff you
yeah.
can try.
Oh, don't
Now,
worry, I'm
how
trying
much
it.
of it is, you know, good? But yeah, like there
Leviathans.
isn't. I was having this discussion slash argument with Ron in Discord, like arguing over if there is a the list or whatever. I do think if you're running pure world eaters, like no allies and the regular world eaters sub faction, there is a core that you're probably using. Certainly competitively. Like if you're playing friendly beer hammer or whatever, do whatever the fuck you want. There is a core, but I still don't think it is an auto take core because you don't have an uninteractive auto win army out there. So you don't need to take 8 bound. Terminators are solid, for example. Hell, they are. I'm sorry, but they are. Hell brutes aren't terrible. I don't think they need to be taken, but they're not terrible, especially with the strat reserve option for them. And they are cheaper for us now. Like yeah, I just think there is a lot of variation available, depending on what models you own and what your playstyle is, what your local meta is, all that sort of thing. Um, it is limited though, right? That is there is an issue in that we do genuinely have only a small roster of data sheets from the codex, which does sometimes I've found get a bit annoying in list building. I'm not complaining about it because we got a codex, right? But there is a tiny bit of frustration sometimes when I'm like, man, like all I'm ever going to do is make the elites slot the super slot for the arc. That's all I'm ever going to do because I've got one fast attack choice, which, okay, Forge World changes, and heavy support. Do we want anything there?
Quad heavy bolters.
Yeah, the triple rapier carriers. I've tested it once and it was really good.
Vindicator laser destroyers as well.
Really? I haven't
Maybe.
really looked into
I
it.
I don't hate the laser destroyer,
Maybe.
to be honest. Yeah.
Maybe.
I looked at it again the other day and I was like,
That damage
not
6
terrible.
is still, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Are they 180 or 175 or something?
175, I think. Yeah.
It's only 3 shots though, right?
Yeah, we were talking. Me and Dara were talking about the Sikaran variant the other day as well. The
That's
Venator
true.
is the tank hunter, I think.
The Venator was the heavy one, but we kind of just landed on the fact that, like, isn't it just better to take the Vindicator, right?
Yeah, the Vindicator allows destroy because it's
More
like the same.
consistent.
It's the same price but more consistent and like slightly harder to kill, and also
Slightly
doesn't
harder to
cost a
kill, and the
CP.
Venator didn't get the damage buff if it moves.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know the Sikaran, if it moves, it's not a flat 6.
and the Venator obviously costs a CP. So
Yeah. But yeah,
It's
I mean,
interesting. I mean, like,
yeah,
there's options there, but I think, like, I agree in theory with what you're saying, Jamie, that, like, there isn't like a, you can bring those things that you said, like Hellbrutes and Terminators and whatever, and like it will be good. Like, it's quite difficult to write a bad list for the world
Yeah.
leaders. Like, an actively, like, this list will lose every game it plays. It's
Yeah.
quite tough to write that list. But like, I do think that there is the list, like, and it's like, I think it's kind of lame. Not like an exact carbon copy of the list, but like there's like maybe 1,700 points, and you've got like 200 or 300 points, like,
Yeah.
move around a little bit. And it's just like, to me, it's super boring. But
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
that doesn't mean that you can take other things and, like, I was talking to a couple of folks about it, and I was kind of saying, like, look, I'm writing this list, and I know it's not going to beat the Invocatus 8-bound rush. Like, I know it's not going to be better than that. I don't care. My question is, like, is the list good? We don't need to compare it to something else. It's just like, is the list good?
Yeah.
Like, can it win games? Can it win a certain number of games? And like, it doesn't have to be better than Invocatus. Like, we all know it's probably not possible to write a list that's better than that right now. But like, that doesn't mean that if you write something, it's like completely invalid, right? You can like bring something that's like pretty fun for yourself, and it can still be quite a competitive list in the like entirety of 40k, or like competitive 40k. It can still do quite well at an event. Just because it's not beating the Invocatus list in all the matchups that it does, it doesn't mean it's bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's my take on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Jack, how have you seen? Because obviously you monitor the kind of like the meta, the list, obviously for your WAC weekly. Are you seeing any big fluctuations, or is it genuinely pretty much what Dara said, that 1,700, 1,750 point, Invocatus 8-bound, some Zerkers?
So I'd say like the list that's turned up most commonly, like as having done well and is like a trend, is Invocatus and like Oops All 8-bound, and that kind of like archetype. There are plenty of other lists doing well. It's just that a lot of those lists, I think, are much more tied to player skill. And so you're getting like the odd ones that have like double land raiders, or like night allies, or like weird demon patrols. Like, there's been a couple with Uraka showing up recently. Loads of Karanak lists, loads of flesh hounds. Like, there's a lot of variation, but it's like slight tweaks on how people have set up their allies. And then, yeah, as I say, there's some fucking weird pure world eaters lists, and like, so there's been like the odd disciples list as well. It's done like 4-1-5-1, or 3-0. So yeah,
am I right in assuming that basically it's world eaters are not being played in the WTC, mostly in continental Europe, because they haven't had an FAQ yet? Because isn't that how they run it in the WTC?
So theoretically, for the actual WTC, yes. But I know Nations is coming up very soon, and they are legal for Nations. So,
okay. All right.
like,
Yeah,
I think it's only in like the actual event, the WTC, that like they're not seeing play there. But like, they were legal for Broadsword, which uses WTC.
yeah,
Um,
they have been legal. So there's a UK TC event this weekend, Southampton, which they were legal at. So because I think the rules for Zach's events are FAQ or 5 weeks. I want to say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's like FAQ or 6 weeks, I believe.
For hang on,
maybe 4. I don't know.
When did we get released? 4 weeks, probably.
They're
because
legal.
It's 4 weeks.
Is the long and short of it.
They're legal for Southampton,
Okay.
which is this weekend, or was at the time filming this weekend.
I think it's WTC format and teams layout is a lot more interesting for actual world leader builds, because it means certain things like Angron and Red Angel lists are a lot more viable, because using Angron in WTC is like hello, you can't come within 26 inches of this entire area of the board. is like a very powerful ability in teams.
Yeah.
And also you can pick your matchups. Well, you can't pick your matchups, but like, there's the whole pairing matrix, right? So like Invocatus isn't necessarily like that much better in team formats, but like that's such a small part of the overall competitive game, and like people really fixate on it being like he's super good in teams or whatever, and like yeah, sure, that's fair for like the 10% of people who actually play team events, but like the rest of us are playing singles. So I think that's like what most people focus on, right?
Yeah. So do you want to kind of? I mean, you kind of started the section on the meta then. Should we move into sort of experiences with World Eaters in the meta?
Yeah.
So Jamie, you had Kagbash last weekend.
Yes, correct.
And you were not the only World Eater player there.
No, that's true.
You finished 3-2, right?
Yeah, 3-2.
And with an Invocatus list.
Yeah.
And how did you experience your matchups? I know you had some tough. It was a Shark Tank GT, wasn't it?
It was a really it was a very competitive field. It started off with 4 World Eaters players. One was listed as custodies, though I think there was like an error or something. He ran Angron and Scarbrand and some stuff like that. And one of the World Eaters had to drop after day 1 because his wife was giving birth. So it was a fair reason to drop.
Fair enough.
Yep, allowed. But yeah, it was basically the Invocatus build, and honestly, it felt really strong. 3-2, the 3 wins felt good. They didn't feel like I absolutely stomped someone or made it unfair. They were generally quite close. But between sort of like 5 and 20 points sort of win differential, which is
for your wins, Jamie.
Yeah.
Did you go first in any of those games?
One of them.
Right.
Day 1 I went second all 3, and day 2 I went first, then second, I believe, or maybe first and first. I can't remember. But yeah, going second felt fine. Especially on like abandoned sanctuaries where
it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It kind of helps because you get the end of round scoring and stuff like or end of game scoring and stuff. Sure. But the list, even when I lost, like the 2 losses I did get into Obsec Necrons and Born Soldiers Guard, we're both very, very strong pilots. The Necron game was away from me a lot quicker than the Guard game. Guard game was tough, and that is a very hard game to win for anyone with Born Soldiers. It's just a tough list. Necrons, I think, is it's been said before by smart people than me, but it's kind of like for us, for a fast combat army, you go first or you lose. Against a decent player with Obsec Necrons. I don't want to, chalk it up to that because I still don't think I necessarily won, but I think I had a stronger chance to win. And I think that will go for anyone running the Invocatus list. So we don't have easy games at tournaments. We don't have an easy path at a tournament because you're not going to fight your optimal opponent every game. So I think that probably bleeds or feeds into why we're seeing more of the kind of 4-1s and 3-2s, strong performances, but you're always going to hit a list which is very strong against us, I think. And you'll have that go second problem or something, right?
Yeah, and I think the meta, I mean, the GW Meta Watch article touched on it a little bit, but I mean, StatJack have been doing it as well. GSC Dark Angels, sort of top of the meta for singles at the moment, right? GSC, sort of hard counter Invocatus going first because you can't end within 9 inches of excellent.
GSC in general, hard counter Invocatus, I think.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of trade units as well. We just can't. I feel like I'm not that experienced in GSC, but me and Dara sort of theorized the matchup the other day, I think. And I think we struggle to out-trade them, right? And struggle to kill their bikes still.
I don't think, the bikes are just like a massive problem. Like I've seen Angron go into those bikes and not kill them in like 2 rounds of combat. So that means there's nothing in the Invocatus list that can do it. But especially because like the damage profiles on the 8-bound are terrible for the bikes. Because with the Feel No Pain, it just like so much damage is lost because of how the multi-damage works. And then it's like you say, it's impossible to outtrade them because it's like, oh no, you use your 8-bound to kill a squad of neophytes. If only I had 30 more neophyte squadrons to deal with this 8-bound. Oh yes, and also these neophytes have weapons in combat that if I hit you, they just do
Just
mortal
do
wounds.
mortals, yeah. You're
Good
fine. Yeah.
night, 8 pounds.
Yeah. And then obviously Dark Angels, a lot of staying power and also a lot of speed and firepower in the mix list that we're
Yeah,
seeing. There are obviously like a couple of different archetypes. Some people are running pure Ravenwing, which is just they're faster than us and can shoot us. They don't need to get into combat. Deathwing, which are like 50 Terminators, and we will struggle to kill all of that with our because we're quite an elite army as well. And I'm not sure we really have the killing power for it.
yeah.
There
And
is
then
one model in our army that does.
there's the hybrid lists. We'll get onto that. The hybrid lists, which are like sort of 20, 30 Terminators and then 15, 20 bikes, maybe some speeders, which is sort of best of both worlds, which, yeah, I think see above we have trouble with. But yeah, Dara, you obviously, I mean, Jamie ran Invocatus at his tournament. We've both been to GTs as well with the new book, and we have both run Angron. Two mixed results, although I would say that your tournament was far more competitive. Your opponent's probably far more competitive than mine.
I mean that I think that's an
Played.
irrelevant point. Like you play the games you're given at the end of the day, and you play the event you're at, right? So like I don't know. I wouldn't use it as an excuse for my performance. And you did really well at yours, so that's fair. But yeah, like so I brought him and I went 2 and 3 at broadsword, which was not great. Um, and yeah, like I found Angron really useful. He wasn't really the problem in the list. The 2 games that I won, he absolutely won me the game. And the games that I lost, he kept the score super, super close because of that. So like the games that I won, for example, was like one was Iron Hands. So I threw Angron into the middle of the board in turn 2, I think. And he took out 10 Terminators with Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, all the usual stuff, which is cool because he can just do that with the Mortal Wound stratagem. And like I had the 6s explode, so I was like, cool, I'm going to sweep. All these 6s are exploding hits, and then all these 6s for wounding is Mortal Wounds, and I just easily picked up the whole squad, which I didn't really want to do. I wanted to keep like 1 or 2 Terminators alive so he could trap them in combat. But then Angron did take 2 Redemptors, a full drop pod of 2 Devastator squads, and a Leviathan Dreadnought, which was the entire rest of the Iron Hands army, into him, and died just on the Leviathan Dreadnought, who was like the Warlord Storm Cannon, exploding X, Y, and Z to whatever. But like the fact that he took the entire army in the face meant that the rest of my army was like, cool, goodbye. So that won me that game. And then I played Hail of Doom Eldar, which I beat as well. And that was pretty funny because every single turn he would just charge 2 things and kill 1 and then be like, cool, you cannot shoot me. And then he would just like rinse and repeat. Like eventually I got into the Eldar deployment zone where there was like 2 Dara Avenger squads, and I was just like, oh my god, this is delicious. Fantastic.
He's done it
again. He's done it again. So yeah, he was like really good in that. And then the Emperor's Children game, he was brilliant for like bouncing back and forth. He just held a flank by himself, which was great. Nice. And like, yeah, the other games he was brilliant. I just found the 8-bound were really trash. Like they would just run forward and like go into something, not kill it, and then be like, we're 40 points a model and we're dead. And then my Berserkers would just be like, cool, we're 22 points a model and we're doing what the 8-bound should have done, but we're doing it in style. So I like 2 of the games that I lost because I was like, I'll put the 8-bound in here and they will definitely kill this thing, especially when I put all these stratagems on them. And then they would be like, no, we won't. And then they didn't. And I was just like, oh, thanks, guys.
I feel like you do have a vendetta against 8-bound because it sounds like you just roll terribly with them. I
mean, I did
roll terribly with them every time.
With the 8-bound, right? They throw so few dice out that you can roll terribly. Like it's kind of hard to roll bad with Berserkers unless you roll like seriously bad. But like you've got the guy with the Lacerators, right? If you roll like 3 1s and 2s, it's just like, oh, okay, that sucks. I needed him to do more than that.
What I was going to say, because I do agree, the 8-bound have been quite lackluster for me generally. That is also learning to use them, or hopefully learning to use them. But the volume of attacks, whilst they're great per model, you know, like 7 attacks or 6 attacks, whatever, their weapon skill of 3 is what, because you know you're mathematically missing with a third of that. So one of those models is functionally useless. So it
was always the champion for me. He was just like, oh, my hands are too big. I can't hit anyone.
like a third of your hits miss, and that's you've got 3 models, so one just doesn't do anything. So I have seen them do really well when I've got the +2 up, hit on
+1 to hit,
+1.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then suddenly it just feels like if you absolutely need the extra hit to go through, I don't mind CP re-rolling a hit roll if I'm wounded on 2s or 3s. If I need it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, like 8 bound are very much what you're going into. Certain lists they just won't do much against, and other armies I feel like they can. I think they're probably going to be better into Marines because you're dealing with 5-man squads.
Like,
if you're going into like a squad of 10 guardsmen, you can theoretically fuck it up and not kill all the guardsmen, and then they've
I had them going to 5 striking scorpions and they only killed 3, and I was just
my god!
Okay. Like getting involved?
All
they've got 5 up
warriors have an involved. Yeah,
5 up.
And then the striking scorpion Exarch killed all 3 of them in response, like just the Exarch.
Yeah,
and I was just like, okay.
There isn't
the mathematics on that, right?
But there isn't enough
point,
of a when you're taking a 3-man 8 bound, their volume doesn't go high enough with a good enough accuracy that they will, exactly like you said, Dara, they will just feel like more often than not fuck it up for you. They won't overkill. We're used to berserkers just lawn mowing through units, right? From our previous 2 iterations. Whilst they're not as powerful technically now, 8 bound are kind of like, I think we're going in like, oh my god, they're souped up like a berserker with 8 bloodletters inside him. They're not quite doing it. And Exalted 8 bound do it, but because you can only run 3 and they're not core, Exalted have done well for me, but that's good. I've been leaving them late game when they're going into vehicles and things like that. But they're locked to 3 models, so you can't, do much with them. They're very much a one-trick pony, and 8 bound are more of a jack of all trades, but it's so expensive. Like, you've got to dump 4 CP and get a couple of tithes up to make them worth it. But they're also the unit you want to throw away first of all. So it's really tough.
Yeah.
Shall we move on then? Because I think talking about 8 bound kind of leads into because they are so instrumental as to the Invocatus lists, kind of leads on to the discussion between, are you taking Angron or are you taking Invocatus, and sort of pros and cons. It's been discussed quite a lot in the Discord, around the internet, everywhere, with people saying like you can only take Ron on like heavy terrain boards, WTC, UKTC, place where you can hide him basically. I mean, my performance is kind of proof that you don't, because I played on GW terrain. There was no true line of sight blocking anywhere on any of the boards.
Shows that you can bring him on the big L and still be bad.
You said say that, Dara. And then obviously Invocatus is what everyone is currently high on the internet. So I guess, Dara, you are more of a proponent for Ron, I would guess, over Invocatus, and I think Jamie is potentially more of a proponent for Invocatus. So
I will be clear right now, set the record straight. I do not think Angron is better than Invocatus in any world. In every game I played in Broadsword, I thought this would be so much easier to win if I had Invocatus. I just don't want to run him because I think the build is super boring. But that's just me. And like that's why I'm running Angron. Not because I think he's better. He's definitely not.
Wow,
but he's
because
fun.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay. Wait.
Yeah.
And thus we have flipped.
Are we doing the Uno reverse?
Yeah, we staged this like when we discussed how to do this. Like Dara's going to champion Angron. I'm supposed.
I will still champion Angron. I will champion him to the end of time.
Okay, so like literally the reasons I haven't run Angron yet is, well, one, because of hobby. Like that's the big one. I have got him primed though, built and primed, so I'm getting him
big.
Yeah,
there's like an applause emoji here, right?
And number 2, I have been holding back because of terrain. I have been holding back from terrain, but I've just decided I don't care about that anymore based on kind of things you guys have been saying, results that have been happening. And you know what? I want to run fucking Angron. But I know everyone says, and is probably right, that Invocatus is better than Angron. But I think there is truly a disciples list specifically. I think you can do it with regular world eaters, but I think there is a disciples list that is within range of the world eaters list. I think
Definitely.
it's going to take more experimentation, but I really want to run disciples. I think their stratagems are fucking bonkers. Regular world eater stratagems are good, but they're not juicing us up, right? We're relying on the tithe for the power.
1 CP fight on Dara.
Yes, yeah, no, it is. It is amazing. But the disciples ones, whilst you lose the pre-game move, you got the 9-inch normal move with, or you got a normal move with
for
the
real. Disciples, the stratagems in disciples make me hype to play 8-band.
Yes.
Like they are so cool in disciples.
Like you fell back. No, you didn't. Like it just and
it's like the one where it's like if you put together a brick of 8-band and like you kill one, they're like, we are moving 9 inches now. I'm just like, excuse me?
Yeah. But I do think Angron, you know, we've had so much discussion about Angron since the rules were leaked. We've had some games with him. We're seeing where he's showing up in the meta and stuff. I'm getting more and more convinced that he is very strong. I think I need to get the economy right in my head for the resurrection. Once I can figure out how to plan that, just the coming back. I know people are going to be
that's a trap.
Don't even think about that.
Resing is a trap, man. You need to like. So in my 5 games that I played with him, he died 4 times, and I resed him maybe twice total across all 4 games. Okay. Like two instances of resing rather than like.
But just having the option of it's the psyops, it's the trick in your back pocket. I'm not saying it's
the psyops for sure, but the actual res is not.
Yeah, okay, but there's so much in him, and although he only gets one of his 3, powers to cast.
It's always no fallback. It's always no fallback.
It's not always no fallback. It's not.
For me, it's always no fallback.
Not into armies like Blood Angels and stuff like that. It's not.
So there is another list, but it's a World Eaters list, but it's spamming Jackals, and I can't claim the fame for this one because I know Dara's talked about it with Ron. I know Mark's currently Mark Khorne's testing it out. But man, if you get the +1 attack on a squad of 20 Jackals, and if you've got +1 to attack as well, so they're hitting on 3s or exploding 6s or both, that may be the most efficient unit in the game.
5 attacks for 7 points.
Yeah. At strength 4 or 5, depending on if you pop the mortals, which you probably are.
Yeah,
AP1, AP2.
I really want the list to do well, but there's no way I'm painting 100 Jackals.
I'll use my cultists and the Jackals I'm working on right now for now. I can run 2 squads of 20. And I've got 10 more on order. I'm going to be hobbying on Jackals for a couple of months.
That's fucking gross.
But, anyway,
the other list that I want to try, and I feel like I have been more hype on allies than either of you.
Yeah.
I want to try.
I'm hype as hell on demons. I need to get some other stuff out of my system first, and then I'm on the demon train.
I need a 2-handed axe bloodthirster because I want to try phase cap and Angron. Yeah. With Angrath as well, for like fucking disgusting. If either of them makes contact, they kill stuff. Like, so that is. So either you have Angron hitting your lines.
I think that's the disciples list, right? Like that's the one.
Essentially, I think that works. I think it works with generic world eaters as well, though, right? It works. You have both. Angron face cap bloodthirster with 10 blood letters, either a glaive lord or a fucking Invocatus if you want, and then just loads of berserkers and rhinos, and that's the list, and like 3 spawn or whatever, but like that's the list. And you have these 2 things, either both going up the middle or going up either flank, and Angron is going really fast and hits something and kills it, or a phase cap bloodthirster with 16 attacks at strength 8 -3 damage, like hits something.
That is a list that is incredibly powerful on the UKTC or WTC because it runs the risk of like. So if your opponent knows that's happening and you don't have the big L, then they're gonna, if they can, they will just kill Angron as fast as possible. So they stop like the bloodthirster falling out of his ass. But like if you have the big L, there's nothing they can do. It's just like the center of the board is going to be a massive problem for them. no matter what
So,
happens.
so basically, because you're coming over from Bristol now, right? In June,
Who are
maybe
you talking to?
Dara.
Oh,
No,
yeah, sure.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
you're coming
probably
over from
am. Yeah.
Bristol. Yeah, okay. Because that's obviously late June. So post slate, which we'll get on to. If
Could be 10.
If the Invocatus build gets crushed, you better believe I'm buying, building, and painting a fucking exotic bloodlust.
Man, I got that model. I'll just bring him over with me.
I do
Yeah.
think, but
But
yeah,
if we pivot to Angron, then I'll be trying that. Knights are really good though. Like they're really useful for us at the moment.
Yeah.
But
I'll be trying out my new spicy night tech tonight. I'm pretty excited for it if it pays off. I don't know. We'll see.
so so we've ended up no further or like no better than when we started this debate
Well, I
between
mean,
Angron and Invocatus.
yeah,
So
I think what we didn't say was we spread it out, right? We were like, look, there's lots of things that are cool. That
Yeah.
isn't necessarily just the cookie cutter list. There's all these other ideas that we're having that are,
yeah.
like I said at the very beginning, like competitively viable, not necessarily better, but viable, and maybe in some cases actually might be better. We don't know yet, you know?
Yeah.
I will just say I do not think, in my opinion, Invocatus is better than Angron. I think potentially the Invocatus build is better than any Angron build that has been tested so far. Just on a
So
Mm,
I think you're right in a weird way where it's like so for the your average world leader player, the layman berserker, let's say, the Invocatus build is better because they don't need to worry about going 5-0 at a tournament because they never will. Like they're just gonna hit that skill ceiling and be pushed back down. They might win 3 games on day one and then run into someone who understands what a screen is and how to use it, and then Invocatus stops working. But for people who are like really good at the game, Invocatus can win events. But for people who are at that level, Angron can go further. I think
yeah.
the Invocatus build, the reason why we're seeing so many people go 4-1 and get stopped at the very top is because those very top players are like, well, I understand how to screen you, so I'm sorry. Like you don't get to play your game. But the thing about Angron, especially in Europe and UKTC, is like even at the very top tables, it's super hard to play around him because you just have this massive exclusion zone that basically he can just jump in and say like, "Hey, the world is mine here." So you've got loads of like really interesting like
I'm
skill play
eating
around
it.
that. Sorry,
He says the world is mine and I'm eating it.
I'm eating it. Yeah, right, exactly. So I think in the hands of like literally like the best players, an Angron build is better because they don't have to worry about things like, well, if I run into GSC, I just lose. Um, because like Angron can kill all the bikes, and like Angron can bad touch 2 neophyte squads, kill one, they can't kill him back, and then it's just like, oh, so now Angron's in my lines and I can't shoot him. That's
Yeah.
a problem. So like I think in he has like a lot more play after you win your 4 games and you're potentially looking for a tournament win. I think in those situations, Angron is excellent. But I think for like your very, very average 3-2, 2-3 player, then Invocatus is better at that level, is my feeling on it.
I'd agree with that.
yeah, I think I'd probably agree with that too.
Okay.
So basically, what we're saying in Angron versus Invocatus is could be either. Depends on your level.
Yep.
And not even like necessarily depends on your level, because you can be like me and be an average player and like do fine with Angron, you know? That's totally possible too. Like he is just good at the end of the day. He's a 360 point model that kills pretty much everything in the game and comes back to life when he dies.
Yeah.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Okay. So shall we move on then to the future? So obviously we mentioned that data
Let me get the
slate.
crystal orb. Hang on.
So the data slate is coming. We had confirmation in the MetaWatch article that it's coming straight after Adepticon, which I believe is end of March. So we're likely to see it in almost exactly a month from now, probably.
Yep.
So ahead of Warhammer Fest that I know me and Dara are both going to. What are we expecting from that? What units do we reckon are going to get changed? I know Dara has some thoughts, but what units do we reckon are going to get changed? Any rules, maybe? Bear in mind, data slates probably aren't going to touch points. It'll be secondaries and data sheet rules and shit like that. More so, I would expect. Who wants to go first?
I can go because I don't have much to say. I don't think World Eaters will get balanced much, if at all. I don't think they'll touch anything. I could see. I don't know whether they realistically touch secondaries in the data slate. I don't know if they ever have, but that would be the only thing. Would be maybe change like a slight nerf to Pole the Skulls. I don't know how they would do it. But
yeah, as you say, I don't think they've touched secondaries directly. They've only touched them indirectly. But for indirectly, that would be a blood dye change.
Yes, they could
about point generation, how we generate.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could alter the blood type, but I don't think they need to.
We're not. This is the thing. We're not winning
the meta. We're not.
We're not winning events left and right, and we're not at a 60% win rate. Yeah. We're at like a 50 something, 51, 52.
So I don't think we're gonna World Eaters specifically will be touched unless, like I said before we start recording, they do something to the Heretic Astartes keyword, like they did with Armor of Contempt. I don't think they will because. Mind you, Marines aren't doing crazy.
CSM's gonna fucking clip.
Yeah. So they could do something with Heretic Astartes. If they gave us our contempt out,
that'd be very annoying.
It would be annoying. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Yeah. I don't have enough to say on it, quite frankly. Dara, what about you? Because you have some things in your brain.
I mean, there's like a lot of things that I want to happen in the balanced data sleep, but they won't because of what you said is correct. Like the surface level read means that like they don't necessarily like parse into the information behind like a 50-something% win rate. Like they're like, cool, that's fine. Let's not worry about it. But like I think that like there's a lot of things in our book that I would like to see change to make the game a little bit more interesting. I think Invocatus is like just toxic for the game. Like I've had people say to me like, please don't play that list. Like if we're practicing, I just don't want to play it. And like in my mind, he's like the Iron Hands of close combat, right? It's just like, oh, I went first and you have the wrong army.
You lose.
Unlucky, you lose. Like one of my friends plays Knights. I'm never going to bring Invocatus against him because the game's a coin flip. Like, if I go first and he's bringing Knights, I'm like, well, it's over. It doesn't like I've been talking a lot to Ron, and he's like, most of my games last 2 turns. Like that sounds really, really like I know like people really enjoy that and stuff, and like you can enjoy it however you want to, but like for me, I'm like, oh my god, that sounds awful. I want games to go on for 5 turns, but so I would like to see him. Okay, so like the way it's really difficult to balance Invocatus, right? Because if you put up his points, people will just be like, okay, I guess I lose a spawn. But that's not really going to work. I think you need to change his Warlord trait, which is really difficult to do because if you make it bad, then he's really expensive. Like I've played Invocatus without like having his Warlord trait. Like I've run him in Angron list, and he feels really bad at 165 points. I think he is 160. Like he just feels bad without his Warlord trait. Like he just flies around and like kills one thing and then he probably dies, which isn't great. And like a Juggerlord with the Berserker Glaive will kill the same thing, or potentially more if you have the blood.
More fun, really.
And it is hilarious. But like, so you got to think about like what you're going to change it to, or if you keep it the same, how you're going to rein it in. So like the way I would do it is pre-game move only goes 6, no matter what you do. Just go 6. And then that way it's like if you want to go for the so like there's still loads of play in that, right? Because if you go first, like they'll go 6 and then they'll go 11, so you're going 15. So you're 17, looking at probably 17, like an 8-inch charge.
17.
Wait, 17? Okay.
11 plus 6 is 17.
Okay, that's why I'm a 2 and 3 player and you guys are like at the top. But like you're probably looking at like a charge that's like a gamble rather than like I've automatically made this charge.
Right? Like it's a 7-inch charge.
So if you go for the bum rush play, you can be whipped for it. Or like you can maybe you make all your like 6 and 7-inch charges, or like maybe you don't, and then you probably lose the game because all your 8-bound are like out in the open being like, "Woo, we're 40 points a model. Please don't shoot us."
Dara, do you remember when we did one of our prediction videos? One of the things I think it was me that suggested was a stratagem or a warlord trait or whatever. Every core, every model in the unit can pre-game move D6 inches.
Yeah.
Like that, I think could be okay because it caps at 6. Yes, stop shaking your head, Jack.
Bad. That's bad though. That like no one will take that. I don't think.
I think if we meet in the middle, meet in the middle and say it's like D3 plus 3.
Because that's just like no.
But I still
No.
think there's a lot of play in if it was like a 6 at most, right? Like the
Yeah.
Necron one, or like most other pre-game moves, right? Because then you still have a lot of positioning options. If you go first, you can still do loads of things or whatever. But like, it's not like a conditional I go first, now I have one kind of a vibe, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it more of a choice. Like the problem is though, if they start to nerf things in our army, if they start to rein things in the balanced status slate, like we don't have the fallback of like different units to choose from. Like
Yeah.
8-bound have so clearly been pointed around Invocatus's pregame move,
Yeah.
which is like the stupidest thing in the world. They're like, oh, here's this unit that when you take this other unit in this specific configuration are valued at this, but outside of that, they're not going to be worth the points that you're
Hey,
paying for
you
them.
can start reserve turn 1.
Oh, great. How wonderful. I did it once and then they failed their charge. And I was like, cool. Why did I do this?
Yeah.
So like,
okay.
I
Jack,
think that's a
what
big
about-
problem.
What about you?
I mean, as I say, I don't think anything's going to change in Balanced Stage Slate. I don't think we're going to get hit at all because I don't think, as I say, I don't think we're tearing up the meta. I think there's people doing a lot better than there used to be just because there's more people playing them and we are not terrible anymore. Like, even in the CSM book, we were not great. So having an army that is not terrible means we're suddenly cropping up in the odd podium or like just doing quite well at some tournaments, but it's by no means like winning half the events every weekend kind of domination. So
we're not in a World Eaters meta. Like we've had a Harlequins meta, we've had Custodes, a Tyranid. This isn't a World Eaters meta.
So as we've all said at one time or another, I think we're gatekeeper and that's about it. And I'm fine with that because it gives us some play. So I think we're like I get what you're saying, Dara. I played 2 games with the Invocatus Bum Rush list now. Sort of my own sort of take on it, and I've gone first once and it did feel pretty bad. We called the game at the bottom of my turn 3 because I got in with Invocatus and both units of 4 8-bound. They traded incredibly poorly for their points. Like I killed 1 Exalted Seeker Chariot and 10 Demonettes, and that was it. And I lost all 3 units in response, but it kept him pinned in his deployment zone, and he had to deal with just them for his turn 1. And that allowed me to like dictate the game for the whole game, or all 3 turns of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's powerful, but it as you say, doesn't lead to very long games.
I just think really like the win condition is like not that dependent on player skill. You know, like the average turn 1 win condition is just like I went first, I move this much, I charge here, I roll my dice, and then maybe you get to play. Like it's like the Iron Hands. Like you just set up, you put the toys down, you take their toys off, and then you shake their hand. It's kind of the same vibe, right?
Yeah.
Except you do it in a different phase.
Yeah, I get that. So if anything is going to get touched, it'll be that. As you've talked about, like limiting the pregame move. Just changing it to 1 unit might be enough, to be honest. Like, just have it as Apoplectic Frenzy. Like, then the most you can do is like a unit 6, 8-bound, and like cool. Like they're going to kill something.
10 Terminators.
Oh, shut up, Jamie. Oh my god. Stop talking about Terminators.
Anyway, moving on. So what are we expecting in the next iteration, or the second wave that is we have maybe hoped into existence?
I think we'll get
Juggernaut Cavalry.
Juggernaut Cavalry, yes. There are
Invocatus 2. They come with a base built-in pregame move.
And also it's 4 units and not 2, right?
And it's also they all fly.
120 points, and also vehicles fly.
Yeah, they actually come on flying stands.
He's getting his own army of renown. I can't, mate. I really want to see a Land Raider on a flying stand. Anyway,
aircraft one.
Anyway, wave 2, Juggernaut Cavalry. There's a lot of things in the Codex that have been mentioned at length that are not in the book.
They drew pictures of the Juggernaut Cavalry in the Codex.
Yeah. They mention other Chaos Lords that aren't on Juggernauts.
And today,
of Slaughter.
The
Berserker Surgeons,
Blades of Khorne announced their shit, and they re-emphasized. I don't know if it's a new box or they're just publicizing the Khorne box for Sigmar, and they've got 3
Skull Crushers. Yeah,
Skull Crushers. That's what they're called. Yeah, It's like, should I go ahead and start buying these now?
Oh yeah, no, like I looked at that box this evening and it was like, oh, so what you're telling me is there's like roughly 20 jackal
Jackals.
equivalents in here. There's like a character which can be whatever the hell I want it to be.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 berserkers and juggernauts. Like
Yeah.
this box is so obviously targeted towards 40k people because first of all, no one plays Age of Sigmar, and if you're playing Age of Sigmar, you don't play Khorne. So like this is
It's
literally
going to take
like,
them a few weeks to save up their pocket money to buy it anyway.
oh, shut up.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh
Okay.
my god, where's the Age of Sigmar chair?
So
I'm on it.
a couple more units, basically. The blood tide system is good. Love
we
it.
all think, like, it's well discussed that we're going to get Juggernaut Berserkers, the Butcher Surgeon, and we've made
Probably Red Butchers.
Yeah, probably the Red Butchers.
Probably in a kill team, right?
It's quite possible.
This video is fucking toxic.
But yeah, like I think we do need a couple more characters, and we need the Jugger Cavalry would need to go in fast attack. Annoyingly, for cavalry, the most wonderful fucking keyword in the game.
They should just all have fly. They should all. You could only take. It's Lord Invocatus' army of renown. You can only take.
We need
Juggernaut cavalry.
I think one thing to keep in mind is like by the time we're gonna be getting those, it'll be 10th edition, right? So cavalry might mean something else.
Yeah,
we can hope.
Now listen,
maybe we get a chariot. That would be cool with a Gatling cannon on it.
I want our cavalry's special ability to be they can go through breachable terrain, like they just charge through it. That's
cool,
difficult ground. I don't care, but they can get there. That's what I want.
If it's on a charge move, I think that's fair enough. Like they are siege rhinos.
Yeah, they should
so
be
fair.
Able to do it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting though to see what we get. I think. Like I just think diversity, because right now it's like me and Ron were talking about like how the codex is like so close to like almost being there. But like right now what we have is like just small, medium, and large berserkers, and like that's the army. It's just like, oh yeah, pick
so
which size of berserker. But that's it, right?
That is
like,
so well put.
Like that's what it is right now. So you introduce things like Juggernaut Cavalry, or like God help us a ranged unit, or maybe a new demon engine, jump troops, and like any of those aspects, any at all, and you just really open up the doors to being like, hey, this is interesting. Like you could put Khorne and Jackals and make the army way more interesting, but like right now it just needs a little bit of like it's so close to being there. It's how I imagine the Sisters of Battle players felt when they got like their first army box with all the stuff, and it was like almost there. And then versus where they are now, which is like you have all the toys, all the stuff. So like I can totally see that happening pretty soon for us. And it's just like what we get to fill those gaps, right?
Yeah. Very interesting. And I mean, today we saw a little teaser, didn't we? For 10th. For what we expect to be 10th.
Probably 10th,
Which is Tyranids and Terminators. But
like I like how people are like, oh, it could be Kill Team, but I'm like, if it was going to be Kill Team, they would have used the Kill Team logo and not the Warhammer 40,000 logo.
When's Warhammer Fest?
May.
Fest is end of April. Okay. Yeah, it's the last weekend in May Day.
Adepticon they'll announce it, because I figured it was going to be Warhammer Fest.
But... Adepticon is what?
I think Adepticon they tease it. They give us the little like, here's your breadstick, and then like Warhammer Fest we get the main course.
Okay, yeah.
But it's your breadstick.
Thank you, Ader.
Oh god, that's a mean format.
Anyway, I think we've given our thoughts on the state of the world eaters at this point. We've kind of rambled, we've tangented, if that's a word.
It was a classic. Like this is why we don't do videos with the three of us, because it just ends up being this like crap.
It's just a stew of shit.
This is content gold. What are you talking about?
Shit.
That's
the video title.
To Don Hooson saying this is garbage now.
Would you say that this is the worst thing you've ever seen in your life?
Yes. But
I'm so glad we're getting mileage out of that soundbite.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's wrap it up. I've been Jamie. He's been Jack, and that's been Dara. I know which way's down. But yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Come drop by the Discord link below. That's really it. Anything else we need to say, guys?
Like, comment, subscribe.
All right. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.